tell people it rhymes with a bagel.
All right, so today I believe it's going to be episode 112. I got EricSwahnRacing.com podcast number 112 with Chandler Slagle, just like bagel, kind of rhymes. Good way to remember it. And thank you for the tip. And hate messing people's names up because it's so easy to do and they're not phonetic. Like my last name is Swahn, but it's not spelled like the bird. There's a silent H in there for some reason.
Yeah.
It used to be Swahn, and somehow over the years, our birth certificate got misspelled from a V to an H, and they just kept it. I guess it sounds more Americanized.
Yeah, and see, Slagle is spelled Slagle, where bagel is EL, but it sounds like bagel, but it's spelled LE.
Right, right.
Yeah, a lot of people say Slagle, and I'm like, no, it's Slagle.
I get Eric Shawn sometimes. I'm like, it's Swan.
Yeah.
But that's all normal. We always deal with that kind of stuff. But you're from the motorsports industry. You're another racer, rider guy, and I wanted to get your story. I don't believe we met in person yet, so good to meet another guy and get your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just started watching your podcast a couple weeks ago, and then lo and behold, you hit me up shortly after and invited me on. So I thought that was really cool. I've never been on a podcast before, so
Yeah, so
I'm
I
excited.
wrote something I wanted to maybe add to those questions. I think it's kind of a good like a pep talk pregame scenario here. Let me know what you think. I'm just going to read it up from my drafts because I don't have it
Okay.
memorized here. All right, I got it. I said, all right, you're all huddled around. We're about to go out for the game, about to start recording. So my new question that I think I'm going to add on here is, please swear, be yourself, ask me difficult questions. This is not an interview. This is not made for kids. This is a conversation. I have no bullet points. Tell stories, experiences, have an unpopular opinion, laugh, talk about current events, what's on your mind. Talk as much as you want. The stage is yours, and just have fun.
Hell yeah. Sounds good.
So yeah, it's just whatever you want to talk about is free game. I know we'll talk about motorsports at some point because that's what we're both experts and professionals in. But just shoot the shit, see what's going on in your life.
Hell yeah. Sounds good to me.
So what's going on in your life?
Well, right now, I don't know if you can see, um, my thumb is all sorts of jacked up.
Yeah.
My last race out at Eagles Canyon Raceway, unfortunately had a crash in the last race of the day. And really it's really weird because one of the fastest corners on the track going onto the back straightaway, I lost the rear, thankfully low sided instead of high sided, and I hit the ground, basically slid on my back, crossed my arms over my chest, and just slid right to the grass. About as easy of a crash as you can ask for. And immediately got up and I was like, damn it. And, I had just gotten into fourth and was trying to run down the top three and was feeling really good, confident, didn't have any issues. And then just no warning, the rear let go. But I picked the bike up. The left clip on was broken, but it started right up and I ended up riding it back to the pits and no pain whatsoever, no issues, and loaded up the bikes, loaded up all my stuff, shot the shit with some of my buddies, and then drove to my shop, unloaded, went and dropped off the trailer where I keep the trailer, and then went to get dinner. And so now it's like, 3-4 hours later, and then my thumb started to hurt just a little bit. And up until this point, no pain whatsoever. And I kind of thought, man, I must have landed on it weird or something, but didn't think too much of it. And by midnight, I was in so much pain that I had to go to the hospital. It was just throbbing.
Like a lot of
And
pressure.
yeah, a lot of pressure right on the tip. And it was just throbbing with pain. And so I ended up going to the hospital, and I actually went to like one of the standalone ER places because it was close to my house, and I didn't think it was too serious. And at this point, there was the end of my thumb was really light, and it almost looked like there was something like pressing up on the end of my thumb. So I'm thinking, man, I wonder if I broke it or something like that. And they ended up x-raying it and said it wasn't broken, but the doctor thought that maybe I'd burst some blood vessels or something. And so it was bleeding internally. And that's what was causing all the pressure. And they gave me some pain meds and sent me on my way. So then fast forward to the next day, and I'm planning on just, toughing it out and going to work. And um, by 10 o'clock the next morning, I was in the ER.
Oh man.
And my thumb was all sorts of black and blue, and I was in some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life.
So it looked worse
And,
than it does now?
oh yeah, I mean, I was, and let me tell you, I have a very high pain tolerance. I mean, I've broken 14 bones. I've had a chest tube, which is horrific. And I mean, short of the chest tube, definitely takes the cake as the most painful thing I've ever experienced.
You're talking about like being intubated?
Yeah, so I had back in 17, I had a really bad crash and my lung collapsed, and so they had to put a chest tube where they literally cut a little slit and then shove a tube between your ribs and go in there to pull all the blood out and reinflate your lung.
Man,
But so
I had same things. I had a lung collapse, but I don't think they had to intubate me. I guess I don't remember. I was out of it for like a week or two, but I think it kind of came back on its own. I don't think they had to intubate me for that one.
yeah, no, it's I don't wish that for anybody because that is hands down the worst pain I've ever felt. But this little guy was a close second. I mean,
Yeah.
I never knew a thumb could hurt so fucking much. But so like I said, I mean, I was in some of the worst pain I ever felt, and it felt like my thumb was gonna like burst. Like I almost felt like a balloon that was ready to just pop. And so I ended up in the ER, and man, they had me on morphine, and that pretty much did nothing. So they ended up putting me on Dilaudid, and then come to find out, they were thinking I had compartment syndrome, which is basically, it's bleeding internally and it's filling up with blood, and there's nowhere for the blood to go. So it creates tremendous pressure on your nerves. And of course, your fingertips have all sorts of nerve endings, and
Very
it's
sensitive.
extremely painful. And so they're talking about like prepping me for surgery, and they're going to do what's called a fasciotomy, which
Ooh.
um, I regret Googling that. Google at your own risk.
Yeah.
It looks very brutal, but they were basically gonna cut from like the tip of my thumb all the way down here to relieve the pressure. And
Oh,
thankfully, they ended up not doing that. But that was not last Sunday, but the Sunday before. So we're on day 10, and it's
damn.
still, yeah, it's still looking
Pretty
pretty rough.
gnarly.
Still
So
hurt quite a bit, but
do they think you're gonna get to keep it?
yeah. So thankfully, it's basically at this point the doctors just said there's not much left to do except for rest, ice it, elevate it, and wait for my body to do its magic to heal, and it'll reabsorb that blood, and it'll do its healing. But it's just kind of a waiting process. So
Yeah, make sure you're getting all your nutrients, eating really well, getting sleep, like all the things you can possibly do for because right now is when your thumb needs that all those nutrients, right?
yeah, but it's pretty crazy that, like I said, after the wreck happened, I stood up immediately and was just like, damn it, I crashed, and no pain. And it wasn't till 4 or 5 hours later that the pain started, and then it rapidly, got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. It
So
seems
that
like
was,
you have interesting type of injury. You didn't actually get injured, like you didn't feel much pain with your crash, but because of the crash, it caused another issue, which caused the compartment syndrome, possibly with the fluid
yeah,
expansion and all that, which would be hours after the initial impact.
yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's, man, it's crazy in this sport that sometimes some of the tamest looking crashes can have some of the worst injuries. And then, I've seen some crashes where the bike's flipping through the air and the rider's tumbling, and then they get up and they're perfectly fine. And then, there's crashes where the guy just low sides and slides and maybe tumbles once or twice in the grass and they're all sorts of jacked up. So it's kind of crazy how that works sometimes. But
Yeah, it's really hit or miss. I've been talking about it on a couple of other podcasts. I'm not sponsored by them, but I do tons of hot yoga to try to mitigate the injury risk, because if you're really flexible and you're also used to being in high heat environments, you're not going to get as tired and you're probably going to crash better. So I've been
yeah.
doing that for years now, and I think it's really beneficial. One of my secrets that I'm giving away.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to try that. I know this year I've kind of gotten a little more serious about getting in shape and being at the best fitness I can be at for racing, and that's one of the things that I've worked on is flexibility and stretching, and I can definitely see the benefits just in the little bit that I've done. So that's definitely something I need to look into because,
Yeah,
like you said, for one, it's going to keep you safer when it comes to injuries because if you're flexible when you start flipping and rolling in the grass, you'll be less likely to be injured. And then two, um, one of the things I've always kind of struggled with is, late on in the races, hanging off the bike and some of the fast corners or when there's it kind of G's out and your body just gets, pushed down into the bike, being able to hold on and not put a lot of weight on the bars takes a lot of core strength and a lot of fitness.
for
So
sure. Like today, I did one this morning at from 10 a.m. to 11:30, and 90 minutes, 105 degrees in there, and my heart rate was 183 at one point. Like it's
wow.
it's maxed out. I'm going as hard as I can, and I'm just standing in place. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you should definitely I definitely follow the philosophy of you should train harder than you're gonna race.
Yeah,
If you're training harder than you're gonna race, then when it comes to race time, you're already, you know, at a level of fitness where you can make it through the whole thing.
for sure.
That was one thing when I started endurance racing. I definitely that helped tremendously because you know we were um, we were endurancing a Ninja 400, and the gas tank would last about an hour and 15 minutes, and so we would go until the tank ran out. And when I first started, like I'd get halfway through, and 30 minutes in, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible." And
Right.
now, I mean, I can go an hour and 15 minutes no problem. So then when I get on my sprint bike and now it's like a 20-minute race or, just like a 6 or 8 lap sprint, I'm like, oh, this is nothing.
Right, yeah, it makes it so much easier. Suffer in training so the race is easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you said you went to a different racetrack than I've heard of. Where is that located? The one you were at last?
Okay, so Eagles Canyon Raceway, it's in Decatur, which is just north of Dallas.
Okay,
Um,
Texas.
so I live in Dallas, and I'm pretty lucky because I'm right in between two racetracks. So an hour north, hour and a half north of me is Eagles Canyon, and that's in Decatur. And then about an hour southwest of me, just south of Fort Worth, is Crescent Motorsports Ranch. So I'm about right in between. And honestly, Eagles Canyon is the best track in Texas, hands down. And it's honestly one of the best tracks in the US.
You think I
That
can compete with Circuit of the Americas?
Oh, it's better,
Oh
honestly.
yeah.
I mean,
Wow. That's a
so
big words. I've never seen it before, but I'd love to check it out.
yeah, so man, Coda is kind of a I don't even know the words to describe it. It's a really cool place. It's fun to ride. There's tons of runoff, so you can really get into a corner hot, knowing that hey, if I get in too hot, I can always stand the bike up, and there's all this runoff. So that's cool, and it's a fast flowing track. But it doesn't really produce good racing, in my opinion. Every time MotoGP has gone there, it's kind of after the first couple laps where they're duking it out. Once they get in order, it's just kind of processional after that. It hasn't really produced a lot of great racing.
I hear that. That makes a lot of sense. It's more of a technical skill ability track. So you're gonna have somebody that's gonna pull away. It's gonna be super hard to stick with them through the toughest track with all the different things that they're throwing at you.
Yeah. And then of course, everyone knows about their issues with the pavement and, it rippling and
All the
causing
bumps.
bumps and all of that, which I was very fortunate that I got to do the Aprilia Day right after MotoGP. Let's see, what, 2-3 months ago? I don't know, a couple months back when MotoGP was there. I got a ride the Monday after, and honestly, I didn't really have any issues with bumps or you can kind of tell at the end of the back straightaway, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Which, granted, I was on a an RS660, not a full blown MotoGP bike. So
Yeah, you start feeling more bumps the faster you go, right?
yeah. Plus the the MotoGP bikes are so rigid that you definitely get a lot more feel when you go over bumps and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Eagles Canyon. So it's been around. I don't even know when it was built. It was actually the first racetrack I ever rode on back in 2015, I believe, is when I did my first track day. Started riding in 2012, and then did my first track day about 2015. And the track was kind of a mess. It was a bunch of cracks and bumps and that kind of thing. And then I want to say 2 years ago, it changed owners, and the new owner came in and completely repaved it. And not only did they repave, but they dug down and redid the base layer. So they dug down like 5, 6, 7 feet, whatever the standard is, and redid the whole base layer and then repaved on top of that. And it's the same paving company that repaved Barber.
Okay.
Which of course Barber's phenomenal. It's actually probably my favorite track.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did a phenomenal job, and the new owner redid all the facilities. So the clubhouse, the garages are all new. They actually just opened a restaurant that's really cool. So it's a really cool place. If you ever get the chance to come down to Texas, I highly recommend checking it out because it's a pretty badass track. So
Heck yeah, I was in Texas flagging for MotoGP at that event, so we probably were at the same place. I was at the entry to the back straightaway. Forget which track
okay,
it is, but the entry to the longest straightaway in the MotoGP calendar, coming from a hairpin turn, that's kind of ridiculous. And then going into a hairpin turn, like those are Formula One style corners. Those are not like motorcycle friendly corners.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to come see any racetrack. So maybe I'll be there in a couple of years or in a couple of months. We'll see where the wind takes me. But yeah, it's cool to always learn a new track. And what would you say are some of the features of the track? Is it fast and flowing? Is it? It sounds like that it might be good for racing, so hard braking zones and things like that.
So it's honestly got a little bit of everything. It's a really fast flowing track. It's got a lot of elevation change. It's got some, really fast corners. It's got some, tighter technical corners with hard braking. It's just really well thought out and built. And it's a ton of fun. I've always been a fan of elevation changes. I love, there's a really fun corner that's really fast downhill, then you brake really hard, and then you go back uphill, and then it's really fast long sweeping right, and then you cut back left, and it's really hard braking, and that whole section is just a ton of fun. But yeah, the surface is just phenomenal. I mean, not a single bump, not a single crack. It's actually kind of funny, when you drag your knee, that it's so smooth that it doesn't even feel like your knees on the ground. It's just like sliding across grass and or glass, and you're like, is my knee on the ground? I think it is. Like
So do you ever get the question, doesn't it hurt when you drag your knee on the ground?
Oh yeah, and of course, people who don't ride or don't know anything about racing, you show them a picture and they're like, "Oh my God, your knee's touching the ground." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point." Like,
It's helpful.
yeah, yeah, that's why I always tell people that it's almost like a hockey puck on your knee. It's basically the same material. Um and we use that kind of as a gauge of, hey, I'm this far leaned over, and I know once my knee hits the ground that, I've got maybe 15% more to go before I'm really pushing it.
Yeah,
Um,
and then the faster you go, you start picking up your knees and they'll be closer to the tank and you'll still be dragging your knee with your knee on the tank sometimes.
yeah, yeah. I remember the first time I ever dragged my knee, as soon as it touched, I yanked it back up, like, oh crap. And then I'm like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do.
I got in trouble myself because I bought new boots one time. I didn't have the magnesium or titanium toe sliders, and I'm a toe dragger, and I ate through an entire set of boots in like 20 minutes. And I was
Oh
like,
my
I
gosh.
ruined these boots like immediately, like because I didn't have the right sliders on them. So like people dragging toes and knees, and a lot of people are doing elbows now. I saw the other day Jorge Martinez, he's dragging his shoulder on the ground, but those MotoGP bikes are a different breed. We can't really do that, I don't think, on stock machinery.
Yeah, it is. It's wild seeing what MotoGP and even like World Superbike, the things those guys do and get away with is just wild.
So what do you think is a decent or really good lean angle for a modern sport bike nowadays, like a 600 class or even SV? What do you think they're actually getting to lean angle wise?
Honestly, I don't know. I remember one of my buddies, Gino, that races Twins Cup. He got to go over to Italy and ride in the Trofeo Cup on an Aprilia. And I remember him posting, I want to say he got to like 58 degrees or maybe even 60. It was something wild. It was surprising. And I mean, this was um essentially a stock motorcycle. I mean, it was the Trofeo spec RS660, so I'm sure it had, front and rear suspension and exhaust, but aside from that, it was basically a stock motorcycle, throw on some race slicks. And I want to say, trying to think of what track. I think they were at Magello.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds
and
about right. 58, 60 degrees for a stock machinery. I mean, race spec, super bike, but not prototype MotoGP bike is what I mean. And I think I've seen like MotoGP riders crash, save the front, achieve like 68 degrees, and still stay on the bike. But that's like basically a crash save type of lean.
yeah,
That's not a typical around the corner every time lean angle. That's like maximum they've ever seen and still stayed on the bike.
yeah, yeah. So that's pretty wild that, a bike that you can go and buy from a dealership is hitting, 58, 60. I mean, that's not that far off.
Yeah.
That's pretty
But
wild.
that's also like most riders will not be able to achieve that, right? You have to have
True.
extreme amount of skill and technique and smoothness to be able to get the same performance out of that motorcycle. You put your standard street rider on that bike, they might get to like 35, 40 and think they're going to crash, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty amazing. So I've gotten the chance to go out to California and train with like Jason Pridmore and Michael Gilbert and Andrew Lee, some of those guys.
Yeah.
And their school bikes are stock motorcycles, typically on DOT tires. They don't even run race slicks. And I mean, they'll go, a second or two slower than they would on their full-blown race bikes with race slicks and fully set up suspension. I mean, this day and age, the level of bike that you can buy straight off the showroom floor is just phenomenal. I mean, they're really and truly race bikes that they put a headlight and a tail light and some mirrors on and then
Yeah.
sell it to the public. It's pretty incredible what you can buy these days, and it kind of blows my mind that a 16-year-old kid, if he's got the money and he goes to a dealership where they'll sell him one, he can buy 1,000 cc motorcycle.
It's
You
like,
know,
here's a Ferrari that weighs 400 pounds. Now go figure out how to ride it.
yeah, yeah, and it kind of takes me back to how I got into riding. Back in well, first of all, so growing up, my mom always said there's no way in hell in her household am I owning a motorcycle. She um didn't want anything to do with them. She thought they were dangerous, and she said, as long as I'm living under her roof, me and my brothers were not getting motorcycles. So my oldest brother, when he turned 18 or 19, bought a motorcycle. And then not long after, my middle brother, when he turned 18, he bought a motorcycle. And I'm like, well, if they got bikes, I'm buying one.
Yeah.
And so I was working out of Sonic, barely making any money, and I literally saved 90% of my paycheck. I mean, I was saving pennies and quarters, and every penny I could, I was saving up. And I did a bunch of research, watched a bunch of YouTube videos about getting into riding, and um, I went and took the MSF course, and read all about the best gear and everything. And I told myself, I'm going to be smart about this. I was looking at getting a Ninja 250. I was going to start on a small bike. I was going to
Yeah.
be responsible. I was going to learn how to ride, what to do, and be smart about it. Well, my oldest brother's best friend calls me up and said, hey man, I heard you were saving up for a motorcycle. He's like, how much money do you got? It's like, I think I had like $3,500 saved up. And he goes, I've got a Yamaha R6 and I'll sell it to you for 3 grand. And then you can keep the other five for gear and whatnot. I'm thinking, this is a '08 Yamaha R6. I mean, these are
That's a
going for
deal.
5, 6 grand. Like, why would you sell it to me that cheap? And I guess he had some legal fees he had to pay for and really needed the money. And since I was, he was good friends with my brother, he was like, hey, I desperately need the money. I'm gonna help you out, give you a hell of a deal, and you know, if you're interested. And so what did I do? I went ahead and bought a 2008 Yamaha R6 for my first motorcycle.
A little quicker. Only maybe 70, 80 horsepower more.
Yeah. And so I think I had it for 12 hours before I topped it out on the highway, 162 miles an hour, and all of that, MSF, I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be responsible, just went right out the window. I mean, I remember I waited till about 11 o'clock, maybe midnight, and got on the highway. There was no cars, and I went up through the gears and had that thing pinned, and man, I was blown away. I mean, it was the craziest thing I had ever experienced. Up until then, I think I had maybe done like 85 in my pickup. That was
Yeah.
maxed out as fast as it would go. I had never even been over 100 miles an hour before. And here I am doing 162, and the white lines are going by like this, and
And it's
my
like your own personal roller coaster. You can control it, you can do whatever you want, you can go in any which way. It's pretty amazing.
yeah, and I mean, I'm sure my eyes were just massive, and I ended up pulling over and stopping at a gas station, and my hands like shaking, and I'm pacing back and forth because the adrenaline's going, and I was hooked. I mean, from that moment on, I was just blown away by the experience and just in love. And as a lot of stories go, with starting on a 600, about 3 months later, I ran it into a concrete wall and
Ah,
totaled the bike. And I've got a nice little scar right here. That whole thing right there. That's where I scraped my knee up the wall. And yeah, that was the end of the the R6, and then once I recovered from that, I was out probably 2 months or so, and then my middle brother, he had bought a 2005 SV650, and he had that thing for about a year, and then he went to a Yamaha R1, and so he sold the SV to me, and yeah, so that was my second bike. A little bit more tame. The V twin's way more predictable than a high revving inline four rocket ship. So
It's kind of like in the middle between a 600 middleweight and the lightweight class. It's still pretty quick. It's definitely faster than the lightweight bikes, the 400s. They might say SV 650, but they're a little slower than the 600s, which is kind of interesting, just based on their power delivery.
yeah, which a lot of people who don't ride or aren't into motorsports, you say a 650 and they think it's this really fast bike, and you're like, yeah, but it's a 650 V twin, so it's you know higher displacement, but you only got two cylinders versus four, and um, of course the big difference there is the V twins have a linear power curve, so you kind of know what to expect. Where on the R6, being an inline four, um, from 1 to 6 or 7, it basically barely has any power, and then you hit 7 and it just rockets away, and you're suddenly hauling ass.
Yeah, that power band is very different in when you get up in the higher RPMs on the Japanese sport bikes. It seems like because I had a Triumph one year and Daytona 675R, and those were totally different. All it makes all its power in the low end torque. So each bike is a little bit different in its characteristics, how it delivers its power. It's interesting to ride a variety of bikes and feel that.
Yeah, for sure. And I really fell in love with the twins. Of course, that's what I'm racing now, in the Twins Cup, and they're just really fun bikes to ride. They got a lot of torque, and they're just a lot of fun. In
I think
fact,
you might
that's
go through tires a little slower than a 600. You might not be spinning it up as much, I hope.
yeah, originally when I first got into racing, it was so like I said, I bought the '05 SV for my brother, and that's what I started doing track days on about a year later, and then did track days for about a year or two, and of course from the first track day I did, I was instantly hooked, and um started racing in 2016. And at the time, I was literally riding the bike on the street. I was riding it to and from work. When I got off work, I was riding until all hours of the night. And then I would trailer it to the racetrack, and it was a naked bike, and I would take the headlight off, and I'd throw a dirt bike number plate on there, and I would take the tail off and put a little race tail on, and I'd go racing, and it was funny. I made a few people upset because I still had the license plate on there, and so when people saw me in front of them on a freaking street bike, they didn't like that very much. But
Oh,
um, it's
fun to
all I
get.
had, and so I took that thing racing, and
Nothing wrong with that. I wish more people would do that, but they're like, "Oh, it's my baby. I love this bike. It's just a machine, man. If you crash it, you buy new parts for it."
yeah. So no, that's how my brother was for a long time. He never wanted to track his R1 or race it or anything, because he's like, man, this is my baby, and I don't want to crash it at the track and then not have a bike to ride on the street. But I it was just for me, it was never even a question. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't want to crash it, and it still was my baby, but I I just had this drive and this desire to race, and once you get that that addiction, honestly, that's the best way to describe it. Once you get that desire, I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop you.
Well, it's once I think you see these people and they start to break through and start to really learn what they're doing. Their body position is getting good. They're starting to do that screwdriver grip. They're getting they're hitting their apexes. They get more consistent with their lines, and they're really starting to see improvements and get faster and safer and feel more confident. And if people start plateauing, they're like, well, I can't go any faster. It's too dangerous. I'm not feeling safe out there. They're making the wrong inputs on the motorcycle and they're not feeling comfortable. It's just once you start learning is when you really start liking it, and you see there's faster people ahead of you. It's like, how is he doing that? Like, what is he? He's on the same motorcycle or equivalent machinery. How are they going through the corner 20 seconds or 20 miles an hour faster than me? And it's that. And if you want to achieve that or want to catch them, and maybe they're your friend, you're like, oh, maybe I could do that too. How do I figure this whole thing out? How do I put all these puzzle pieces together?
Yeah, and I've always said that you learn more in one day at the racetrack than years of riding on the street. And in fact, there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn from bad habits that I made from riding on the street, that then once I went to the racetrack that I kind of had to unlearn these bad habits and learn the right way to do it. But I'm a huge advocate of getting on the racetrack, even if you never plan on racing. Just going to an environment where you don't have curbs, you don't have cars, you don't have people on their phone texting. And then on top of that, you have instructors who are going to follow you and watch what you're doing, and then, lead you around and show you the right way to do it and kind of critique, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong, and help you. And then if you do get it wrong, you got an ambulance sitting right there, 100 yards away, to come help you if you do get injured. So I'm a huge advocate, even if you're not going to race, to get out to the racetrack and learn the skills, to control your motorcycle the most efficient way, because it's saved me time and time again. I'll never forget, I was riding, I think I was riding to work one morning, and it had just stopped raining, so the streets are all wet. And I'm almost to work, and a car pulls right out in front of me, and it's this old lady, and she looks over and sees me coming and just stops. And had she kept going, it would have been fine. But she just stops dead center of the street, and just stares at me. And I had to get on the brakes really hard. And I mean, I must have stopped that far from her driver door.
Wow.
And I 100% credit the fact that I was able to stop was from riding on a racetrack and learning the limits of braking, and riding on a racetrack when it was raining, and being in situations, where you have to panic brake, and knowing how to do that and getting it to where it's second nature, that you don't even have to think about it. So then when something like that happens on the street, you don't panic, you don't freeze up. It's just second nature, it's muscle memory. You know how to go to the brakes and brake, and use all of the braking power without going beyond what your bike's capable of and then crashing.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you as a racetrack rider only had a couple inches before hitting that car, what do you think a standard street rider, they would have, it's the typical Harley rider response, I had to lay her down. Well, did you actually have to, or did you just not know how to brake properly?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, had I not had experience on the track, I guarantee you I would have been, all into the side of that car and either through her window or over the top and been all sorts of messed up. So, again, I'm a huge advocate, even if you're not planning on racing, to get out to the racetrack. And, I've learned so much, to hit on a point that you were making a minute ago. I've learned so much from just riding with guys faster than me. And, you get on the track, and I remember the first race I ever did, I got dead last by like a mile. I mean, they left me in the dust, and I
They're
came
not waiting
into
for you at the next corner, right? They're not slowing down. Like, oh, let's wait for our buddy. No.
yeah. No, I came from doing track days, and I had my local track day organization is called Ride Smart, and they kind of have a 3-tier structure like most track days. They got beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And the beginner and intermediate, you actually have instructors on track with you, and they, each session they pick a couple riders to go out with and instruct and kind of watch you, and you work your way up through it. And so over the course of about 2 or 3 years, I worked my way from level 1 up to level 3, and um, I thought I knew what I was doing. I was one of the fastest guys out there and on a track day, and I was going faster than some guys on full blown 1,000 cc bikes. And here I am on my little SV650, and so that kind of inflated my ego a little bit. And so then when I started racing and I got dead last, and not only dead last, but I mean there was no one around me, I was kind of like, whoa, this is embarrassing.
It's another
And
level though. It's just every single step is like a major step up, and going from like novice or beginner track day to intermediate is a huge step, to advanced is a huge step, to like novice racer is a huge step, and so on. It's just every single step is seconds faster.
yeah, absolutely. And when I was at the top of the track day organization, I had never ridden with anyone faster than that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm fast. Because I was the fastest, or one of the fastest out of the guys I was riding with. But then when I went to that next level, and now here I am as a novice racer, and I'm just getting left in the dust. I'm like, oh wow, you can go way faster than I even realized. And then once I, actually rode with these guys, and after that first race, I'm a very competitive person, so I was pretty upset to get dead last. So the next race that I did, I was like, all right, on the start, I'm going to run with these guys, and I'm not braking until they do. And so that kind of pushes you to go faster, and it gives you that rabbit in front of you to chase after. And then you end up going into corners a little bit faster, and braking a little bit later, and actually, getting that toe and having someone to chase really drives you forward and shows you what is possible, and definitely moves you along. And yeah, like you said, every level that you go to, it just gets faster and faster, and faster pace.
And they're just more consistent. They don't make any mistakes anymore. It's not like novice racing or not advanced track days where they might go wide in a couple of corners. Oh, they're hitting every single point every single time, inch perfect. And then you're doing some Moto America professional racing now, isn't that right? And the Twins Cup.
Yeah.
And I mean that's got to be a whole nother step from up from expert to pro. Like what's that like?
Man, it is wild. I know, so the first Moto America race that I did was back in 2019 on that bike. That's my old SV650. And it's a full super bike build. It's got the 2 mil over motor. Pretty much the only thing stock on that bike is the frame. Everything else has been upgraded, and I
Lighter,
know,
faster parts,
yeah, all the go fast parts, all the good stuff.
carbon
And
fiber.
it's got a little bit of carbon fiber actually. The Twins Cup surprisingly doesn't allow you to swap out stuff with carbon fiber. Even though the classes, we kind of joke that it's almost like a super bike class now, because it's the rules are so open with what you can and can't do. There's so many things that you can do that it's gotten pretty ridiculous. I mean, some of the bikes guys are building are just insane. But yeah, so back in 2019, I did my first race at Barber Motorsports, and I was just blown away. I remember thinking when I first went out on track, I was kind of had imposter syndrome, where I was like, man, I don't know who I fooled. I can't believe they're actually letting me out on this track. And you see the cameras in the corners, and you see all the fans, and it was a really wild experience. I wasn't used to having that many eyes on me. And honestly, the one thing that surprised me the most is how quickly those guys got up to speed. I mean, within 5 minutes in the practice, they were already going damn near their qualifying times. Whereas for me, I've kind of always taken a minute to get up to speed. At the club level, you get Friday practice, and in CMRA, it's 7 sessions of 20 minutes. And so normally in the morning, I'm, slow as shit. And then as the day progresses, I pick up speed and I get faster and faster. And then by the end of the day, I'm ready to race. Well, when you get to the pro level, you don't get that much time. You get usually like maybe one practice session of 20 minutes, and then you get one or two qualifying sessions. So those guys right out the gate are hauling ass. And that was, I think, the biggest surprise to me is they waste no time. They utilize every second they get on track, so you don't get much. So that was kind of eye-opening. And once again, like you said, going up to that next level, I was just kind of blown away at how fast some of those guys were going. I kind of tried to get a toe and follow them into some of the corners, and here I was thinking I was braking really hard and carrying a lot of corner speed, and they would just fly into that corner, get off the brakes, rail it, and be on the gas again while I'm still trail braking.
Sure. One thing I think is important to remember is, or ask yourself, I've been starting to do some racetrack coaching and coaching for MSF and different things. And I think a good idea or something to think about is, how many times did you go off the racetrack today? Most people say, well, none. Like, they look at me kind of strange. I'm like, okay, well, that means you could potentially go faster in every corner, right? You didn't even run off the track once. Okay, that means you can go faster, right? So that means when I was first starting, I think when a lot of people are starting, they brake way too much for the corners. They're not carrying enough roll speed, and then their exits are compromised because they're trying to get on the gas harder to catch up to the next guy who had more corner speed. So your exit speed is going to be higher too. So there's all these things blend together. It's just hard to say, oh yeah, just go faster. Well, how? Well, how do you pick that apart? And sometimes data is a really good thing to look at, especially if you have a teammate or even maybe a friend in your same class, or maybe you can join an alliance with a couple different riders, because it's not going to just help you, it's going to help everybody, and advance the class together. Because I was just looking into, I saw an ad actually popped up on my Instagram feed. It was for sim racing data analysis. So I'm like, I've never even heard of that before. They will analyze like the angle of rotation and the speed of rotation of your wheel. Is it at the right times? Is it too much? Is it too little? Are you oversteering, understeering? Also, are you getting on the gas at the right times? Are you hitting the brake with enough pressure? Are you trail braking the proper way? Because they'll put your data against like the fastest lap data and see, okay, well, you're braking here. He's braking another 75 feet deeper into the corner. That's why he's able to carry 3 more miles an hour around that corner. So it's stuff like that you always can't see with the naked eye, or even looking at your GoPro. You can't always tell exactly your track position or your braking pressure and all those different things. So there's many different manufacturers. There's Starlane, there's AIM, there's MyLaps and lap timers and transponders that you can get. All that stuff is super helpful, I think. There you go. You got an AIM Solo.
Yep, AIM Solo. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with that. A bunch of data. Yeah, and the sim racing stuff is getting pretty wild these days. In fact, I'll show you real quick. That is
Oh, nice. You got one too? Is that
yep.
Logitech, or what kind of setup you got?
Yeah, that's a Logitech G27. It's pretty entry level wheel and pedals and whatnot, but it works pretty well. And then I just took some PVC pipe and built out a little rig and got a race chair, and it's good to go. And then
Nice.
over there I got a little VR headset that I throw on, and it's a ton of fun. And that's a really good training tool, because a lot of the games these days, they're actually 3D scanning the tracks. And so it's down to the down to the centimeter, exactly the same as the real track. I know. So the last Moto America round I got to do was at Laguna, just about a month ago, and one of the tools I used was Ride 4, the video game.
Yeah.
I went on there and did hundreds of laps, just to kind of get a feel for the layout of Laguna, because I'd never been there before. And like I said, the at Moto America, we got one 20-minute practice session. We got two, it was either 15 or 20-minute qualifying sessions. So I had 20 minutes to learn the track, and then I had to qualify.
Yeah.
And that's pretty it's a pretty hefty thing to have to do.
Now, are you allowed to, I mean, some of the classes I think are allowed to go to tracks beforehand as long as it's an AMA sanctioned event. But endurance races are exempt from that. But I don't think there's too many endurance races going on at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, so in fact, this weekend, a lot of people, a lot of Moto America guys race the Weira Endurance Round at Pittsburgh, pit race, because this coming weekend is the Moto America race. So yeah, you're actually allowed to ride. I know the Superbike class, I want to say, is like 30 days before is the cutoff. But twins and stock 1000 and some of the other classes, it's only like a week. But of course, one, there's not many events going on at Laguna Seca, period. And then two, being from Dallas, it's hard enough already to get all the way across the country for a race, let alone, get out there a week early to try and do something else. So really it was, show up and learn as much as I can in the 20 minutes, and then put it all on the line. And really I treated that first qualifying session as another practice. And unfortunately had a crash in qualifying one. Turn 6 got me. That's a really fast technical corner. For anyone that's never been there, it's preceded by a straightaway, and then it goes really fast left hand before you go up the hill to the corkscrew, and right at the apex there's a dip. And a lot of guys talk about how you kind of G out going through the dip, and when you're coming up to it, it's blind. So you really have to tip into that corner before you even see it, before you even see the apex. And if you wait till you do see it, you waited too long. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did. Is I tipped in too late. I missed the apex by 5-6 feet, and I was carrying so much speed to try and get a good drive up the hill that next thing I know, here I am flying off the edge of the track. And I stood the bike up and I went through the gravel, and I'm going all sorts of sideways, motocrossing it. And that wall came up really quick, and I tried to get the bike turned, and the last second I turned it a little more, and the front tire just dug into the gravel and threw me to the ground. But thankfully I was okay, and the bike was mostly okay. Funny enough, so the corner workers helped me pick the bike up, and they rolled it over into the corner. And I kind of got my bearings straight and was looking at the bike, and I'm like, it really doesn't look bad. I got plenty of time left. I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
So I get the bike started and I start rolling it, and the belly pan's just dragging through the gravel. I'm like, man, fuck, what am I gonna do now? So I kid you not, we found a broken zip tie and a shoelace laying in the dirt in the corner. And we used that to tie up my belly pan, and I rode it back into the pits. We straightened my my clip-ons out, and off I went. In fact,
Perfect.
there's a good video on my Instagram of me going down the corkscrew, and you can see the shoelace flapping in the wind.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really the mentality that you have to have, is just whatever it takes to get out there and get those laps in, and learn as much as you can. And you don't get much time. And I know I ended up qualifying, I think, 25th, and I finished 20th in the race.
Okay.
I mean, I was riding my absolute hardest. I was riding my heart out,
Yeah.
and to me, I felt like I was hauling ass, and I was all the way back in 20th.
But
Uh,
you're competing with decade-long professionals, from all sorts of different classes who have been competing for many, many years. So it's respectable to even do that.
yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud of that, to have never been to the track before and learn it in 20 odd minutes, and then have a crash in qualifying and be able to pick it up and still qualify, and then still finish the race. I'm definitely proud of that, but it's pretty wild, man. The Twins Cup is arguably some of the best racing of the weekend, and the guys at the front are just going crazy fast. I know DeCarroll was on pole with like a minute 30 flat, I believe. And that was good for like 14th or 15th in super sport. And I
That's
mean,
crazy.
the top like three guys would have finished in the points in super sport on twins bikes.
Based on their time, yeah, their lap time alone.
Yeah, which is
Incredible.
just wild. I mean, every track they've been to this year, they've broken the outright lap record, and they've broken the race lap record. So
They've never gone. That always blows my mind. Like, it might be another tenth or like a half a second. It might not be that much of a game, but it's like I'm watching this race. They've never gone as fast as they just did right now around this track.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Even the baggers are going faster than the 600 sometimes.
oh my gosh, it makes me mad. Freaking Kyle Wyman went 29 something at Laguna on a freaking bagger. I mean, faster than every Twins Cup bike. I mean, that's just that blows my mind.
Think about
I'd
the
love
power
to.
on that and how do you get that bike to turn?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're putting an insane amount of money into it. I mean, they like that Harley bike, the factory Harley, it's got a full-blown super bike front end.
Wow.
And they've got, custom built swing arms, and it's pretty cool. The stuff they've been able to design for those bikes and what they've been coming out with, and clearly it's working, because to go 29 on a bagger, um, that's just blows my mind.
That's impressive.
When they announced the class, I was like, I mean, that's and that might be cool for like one exhibition race, but um, I think a lot of people were kind of skeptical, like, man, that's I don't know about that. That seems kind of like a waste of time. But honestly, I've been blown away by it. Watching those guys back in a bagger into a corner and slide, and then drag their knee and rail it through the corner, and it blows my mind. I know I'd love to get out there and test one out, take a few laps around the track on one.
Yeah, just maybe reach out to a team, see if you can get that private testing day done.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can do everything comes with a cost, right? If you find the right team who's willing to do it, who is already going to a track, might pay them, I don't know, $500 or something. Who knows? It might be a free ride. You never know what could happen.
Yeah. And honestly, anything that brings more viewers to the sport is awesome, is great for the sport. You know, I really think that there should be more viewers. It's some of the best racing that you can watch. And there's a lot of guys who are really putting their whole heart and just going at it with everything they've got. I my story is far from that unique. There's a lot of guys just like me that are really giving everything they've got, spending every penny they've got, chasing the dream of racing motorcycles, and it's really cool to see, and it's really cool to see the sport growing, and more people watching, and I hope that trend continues.
Yeah, so tell us about your plans for the rest of this season. What other rounds are you going to be hitting or events?
So unfortunately, I'm most likely gonna miss the next CMRA race. It's coming up in I think 2 weeks. Because right now I'm still letting this thing heal, and it's kind of there's not really a definitive timeline. The doctor said that everyone's different. It could take a couple weeks for it to heal, and um, so most likely I'm going to miss the next club race, which is disappointing. But that's racing sometimes. And I'm hoping I can get back to work here in a week or so, and get some money in the bank to go to barber in about a month. So that's
Now, would you ever consider, since you're not riding for this next race, would you ever consider offering a ride to another rider who is looking for a bike or something like that?
honestly, I've never really never thought about that.
Because it's an opportunity for you to rent out your stuff and potentially gain from that weekend and give a rider an opportunity to get out there. Maybe a advanced track day guy, hey, I want to do my first race, or expert guy, hey, I bought it on my bike last weekend. You mind if I borrow yours? Maybe give a cash deposit, maybe a daily pay rate. That's a valuable commodity, a race bike. Not everybody has a full spec, safety wired, water wetter in the coolant, race bike ready to go that's mapped and it's got everything, exhaust and clip-ons and rear sets. Like that's a valuable product.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that too much. I'd be a little nervous. Fortunately, the Aprilias don't crash too well. I actually wadded it up myself right before Laguna and had to scramble to get the bike back together. But that's definitely an interesting idea, something to think about.
Yeah, it comes to mind because um, my buddy lent me his motorcycle for a couple track days, and I offered him a daily pay rate and a cash deposit in case something happened, and he's like, "Nah, just keep your money." I was like, "Oh, that's so nice of you. Like, how could you do this?" He's got another bike in the stable, so he's not too worried about it in the first place. But I guess his plan was to try to sell it to me, which is now I'm buying it. So it kind of worked out.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it's like, I see what he was doing now.
Which honestly, that's something that might work for my SV. This bike. It's I've got so much money into it. I think I'm like 30 grand into that bike because it's on its third motor and it's been rebuilt a couple of times. And I mean, I'd probably only get five for it at most because it's just a second gen SV. So honestly, at this point, I'm probably gonna have that bike forever because it's I don't think it's worth it to sell it, and I've got so much history on it, and I did my first pro race, and so I'm probably gonna keep that bike. But that might be something I'd be willing to let another rider jump on to experience.
Yeah, or even, that's a way to expand your own race team to have another rider. You could make that rider your teammate of sorts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know. So actually, last year, when I raced Barber, I've raced Barber 3 times now, the past 3 years. Um, and we got one session on Friday that was dry, and then of course the whole rest of the weekend it was just a downpour. But that only session that we got in the dry, I was able to get behind some of the fast riders like Hayden Schultz and DeCarroll and Mazziato, and I could hang with them in the corners. But as soon as we got to a straight, or as soon as we got to the exit of the corner and stood the bikes up, I mean, it was comical how fast they were leaving me. I remember laughing in my helmet because it felt like I was on a 400.
Yeah.
The way they were just pulling away from me. And so at the end of the season, I was like, man, can't beat them, join them. And so went ahead and joined the Aprilia party. That seems to be one of the really popular bikes in Twins Cup now. Of course, that and the R7 kind of
Both
debated.
fairly new platforms that have been released in the last couple of years, and seems like they've, have a new bike that everybody's gravitating towards, Aprilia and even the R7.
Yeah, it's the R7 has a lot of foundation in the FZ07. Um, it's not too far off of that. But yeah, I debated back and forth between those two because I was on a 2003 SV650. I mean, I was racing a at this point a 19-year-old bike.
Nearly vintage.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I was like, you know what, I just need to get on a newer bike. And um that bike, I had bought the SV, I had bought secondhand from another racer. And because go way back to when I started racing, I was riding my street bike that I was, you know, had a bunch of wear and tear and daily abuse, riding it to and from work, and then riding it, late at night, and then riding it at the racetrack, doing track days and racing it. I was always having problems with it. And so in 2017, I ended up buying the SV, and it was already race prep bike, fully safety wired, suspension, everything was done to it. It was ready to go. And I raced that for several years until last year was when I was like, yeah, it's time to get something new. And I told my mechanic, the guy who works on all my race bikes, I was like, hey man, I'm gonna buy a brand new bike straight from the dealership. I'm gonna take it from the dealership and bring it straight to you and have you set this up because I'm tired of having bike problems. I'm tired of having this thing break down and always be chasing problems instead of focusing on riding and racing. So
Oh
went
yeah.
out and bought the Aprilia, and it's been a phenomenal bike. It's you can tell it was designed for racing, whereas the SV is like a sport touring bike that Suzuki intended to be, hey, you can go get groceries on this thing and have a nice spirited ride on the weekend. And then of course they made so many of them and parts were really available that it became popular to race them, but it was never designed for racing.
Yeah, so this is a nice race setup, and upgrading 19, almost 20 years has got to be, the technology is way different, feel way different, probably feels more modern, like a spaceship now.
Yeah. it's it was pretty cool, the first time riding it and having all these different modes and traction control and different engine braking settings. And I felt like a kid in a candy store going through all the options and clicking all these buttons. Where my SV, it had the tachometer, the speed, and an on and off switch, and that was about it.
And it's
So
all analog.
yeah. And so it was it's been cool jumping on the 660 and learning to ride that thing. And the I mean, like I said, it's night and day difference. Not only the power, but just the feel of the bike. I actually I rode it at ECR the day after I bought it from the dealership, and I was just blown away at how well it rode straight off the showroom floor.
Yeah.
I mean, since it was a brand new bike and it wasn't broken in yet, I didn't do anything too crazy. But even just going out there and kind of riding at 50% and just carrying some corner speed, and um, I was pretty blown away at how well that thing rode straight off the showroom floor. And then of course now it's a full blown race bike. It's got all the bells and whistles and all the go fast parts. But it's night and day difference. And I'm excited to see what I can do on it at Barber now that I've got a competitive bike that isn't 20 years old. So
Yeah, and you might even get some contingency, right? If it's within 1 or 2 years of the manufacture date.
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Aprilia's paying contingency, which is a little surprising. Because I would say right now almost half the field's on Aprilia's, and the other half is on the R7. and we still got a few SVs out there. So I'm not sure if that's something they plan on doing in the future. Hopefully they are, because there's definitely a lot of 660s out there in the Twins Cup, and um, that would be awesome. I know my goal is to finish in the points this year. My best finish in Moto America so far is 17th.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, they pay down to 15th. So that's my goal for this year, and I'm excited to go out there and give it a go.
So, what do you feel about the Daytona event? Do you think that should be part of the regular championship schedule, or do you think it should be a one-off because it's so unique?
Um, Honestly, I think it's a great idea to have it part of the schedule. I had actually planned on racing it this year, but I went out in February and rode with Pridmore and his guys again, and raced CVMA, and that was my first weekend on the Aprilia, and really got to shake the bike down and do my first event on it. And then I ended up not having enough money to make it to Daytona because, excuse me, it was only, I want to say 2 or 3. I think it was about 2 weeks after CVMA. Um, so I had just driven from Dallas all the way to California, and then now I was looking at driving from Dallas all the way down to Florida, and it just
Driving.
didn't work out. So I'm hoping they do it again in 2023, because Daytona is another one of those bucket list tracks that it's just an iconic racetrack that I would love to get to race, and especially in a pro race compared to just a
Mhm.
club race. That would be quite the experience. And it was some good racing. I mean, I've never seen someone ride a wall before,
Yeah,
but
that was wild. Was that
yeah,
Mazda?
Mazziato hitting the wall and riding up it is by far one of the craziest things I've ever seen. But it had some really close, good racing. And
Just get
honestly,
full pinned in it. Just if you're gonna ride the wall, just stay pinned.
yeah. When in doubt, throttle out. It might not help the situation, but it'll end the suspense.
For sure.
um, yeah, I've said it and I'll say it again. I think Twins is some of the best racing of the weekend. I wish we would get 2 races every weekend. Of course, I'm a little bit biased being a Twins rider myself, but it's always some really good close racing. So
For sure. And you know what? There isn't a category represented that I wish would be, but at some point you're running out of time. There's not enough time for 7, 8 classes and have everybody have enough practice and qualifying. You have to start on Monday and end on Sunday, right? It'd be like a
yeah,
long event for all this stuff. But I would love to see like a senior class because there's the age group cuts off at like 55. What happens if you win the championship when you're 54 and you can't race the next year or whatever? So it's like there should be a 55 to 70 class, senior superbike, just like they have for wear out.
yeah. Well, I mean they do have that at the club level. So
But I would love to see like the expert, maybe retired pros, maybe come back for a round or two and just see what they can really do.
yeah, if nothing else, at least one exhibition race would be really cool to get some of the old retired guys out there on some bikes.
Be like a celebrity race of all the greats.
Yeah, that I'd pay money to see that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
it's kind of funny, the Twins Cup was originally kind of designed to be like an entry class, so some of the fast club guys could come and race at the national level, at the pro level, and get some experience doing that. And it's really just turned into this mini superbike class, because there's some guys really putting a lot of time, effort, and money into it. I know at Laguna, I remember seeing the Veloce Racing team roll in their 18-wheeler, and full canopy set up, and it's hard to compete with these big teams that are rolling in an 18-wheeler, and they got a crew chief and a data technician and a mechanic and a couple crew members. And here I am loading my truck and trailer and driving across the country and setting up the canopy and changing my own wheels and uh, doing fiberglass on the bike when I throw it down, and doing most of it myself. Um, Thankfully, my brother's been helping out when I do the Moto America rounds, and I've gotten a lot of help from friends and other teams that are racing. But yeah, it's really hard to compete with some of these big teams that are putting a lot of time, effort, and money into it.
Yeah, do you ever see yourself maybe contacting one of these teams, seeing if a seat is available or a ride is available? Now, just because you're on the team doesn't mean that they're paying for everything, right? You might have to pay into it just to be in their stable, whether that's money from sponsors or from your own pocketbook, however it's the deal is done. I'm not sure all those details, but would you ever consider something, maybe trying to get on a team?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, that's my goal, is to put a full season together, and I would love to ride for a team. And I can't really um, say the team name, but I got an offer at the beginning of this year to ride for a team. But of course, it was a paid position, and I just couldn't get the sponsorship together to pay for that ride. Um, with the state of our economy right now, and the state of the world, not a lot of people and not a lot of companies are putting money into this. And it's hard to ask for money to go race a motorcycle when some businesses are just trying to keep the lights on. So
For
it's
sure.
it's tough for a privateer, and but I'm giving it everything I got. And right now I'm just focusing on every time that I show up, doing the best of my ability, and hopefully I can show that I'm very competitive, and I'm willing to put in the work to ride at this level. And maybe something will come of that. I'd absolutely love to ride for a team, and I'm gonna keep working at it until I get there. So
Sounds like you're the same as me. Have gear, we'll travel.
yeah,
We'll work
yeah,
for food, money, and podiums.
exactly. Honestly, if I didn't have anything else in life, but I got to ride my motorcycle every day, and I got to race all the time, I'd be the happiest man alive. I mean,
Yeah, so excuse me, that transitioned into something that I started doing recently. Maybe have heard me talk about it on the podcast already, but I'm a MSF coach, so Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Been teaching people how to ride a motorcycle at the beginner level, getting their license to ride on the street in the state of Michigan. Been doing that for a couple months now, and I just got certified as a United States Motorcycle Coaching Association coach. So I got certified for that, teaching people sport bikes and how to ride more higher performance things than the MSF. And then after I just posted my certification, a couple hours later, I got an opportunity to be a coach for a sport bike track time. So I did my first coaching Monday at Grattan Raceway a couple days ago. It's Wednesday, the 17th of August right now. It's probably be posted in a couple weeks. But yeah, it was great. I was the novice Group 1 lead instructor, and it was a great experience doing that. I mean, I've been riding and racing for 11 years. I mean, giving people tips at the racetrack for a long time, but never at a formally been a coach. So to impart my knowledge, and they were really looking to me for like, hey, did we cover everything? What else do you want to talk about to teach these people? Because of all your wealth of knowledge and racing that I've done, I think I've done um, like 115 motorcycle races over the last few years. So had a lot of starts and a lot of failures and a lot of successes, but you can help the next person not make those same mistakes. So really, at a novice level for track days, it's getting them not to crash is the number one goal. Do not crash. Stay on the track. Like follow the line. and just be safe about it. And they do drills like third or fourth gear drill, depending on your motorcycle. So we're not even using the brakes. We're not using engine brakes. We're just keeping it in one gear and just roll on, roll off, no brakes. You can use the brakes if you need to. If you're going to run into me, please use brakes. But the idea is your car is like, say, 4,000 pounds. Your motorcycle is like 400 pounds. Your car's got this massive flywheel. You let off the gas, you're going to be coasting in the car for a long time. On a motorcycle, you roll off, it's immediately braking, basically, right? It's immediately slowing down way faster than your car would. So just getting people to understand that you don't always have to use the brakes. Like you guys might have been, but I didn't even touch the brakes the whole session, and you were right behind me. So, so just giving them different concepts and working on body position, and that's a big thing for people is body position. You think you're doing one thing on the bike, and then you see your pictures, you're like, oh no, like that's not what I thought I was doing out there. Or you get
And
the coach behind you.
I was this close to dragging my knee, and then the picture, it's like that far away.
You weren't even 3 feet away from it, So,
Yeah. Of course, now I'm like, I was this close to dragging my elbow, and then
yeah. Right, that's what it feels like anyway. So, a couple of people were like, I'm getting so far off. Like we're doing the body position drill in the pit lane, and they're doing fine. And they get out of the track, and they don't even move their butt an inch. Like, what are you doing? You're like sitting in the middle of the seat, maybe going 3 degrees to the right or 3 degrees to the left with your upper body, but you're not really leaning. And so getting them to understand, like, hey, I say, you gotta act like a cartoon character, like exaggerate as far as you possibly can, and then it'll probably be like half of what you actually need, you know? Because people, they don't think that they can hang off the motorcycle that far. They think that's dangerous, right? They think I'm gonna fall off the motorcycle that way. Well, you could, it's possible, but that's actually the safe way to do it. That's the safe way to go around the corner. Getting your body positioned low to the inside and down helps you go around the corner faster, safer, because you're on more of the meat of the tire rather than just the far side edge. So a lot of techniques and a lot of things to learn. Another question, I had a new friend who super interested in going racing. He's done some motocross racing years ago, but he's never done a track day before. And he was saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna go to this next race event for my first time on the track." I'm like, calm your tits, hold on a second. You might be fine, you might be okay. You have some good riding experience behind you and actually racing experience, but it's been a decade, I don't know, since he's been doing that. So like I did, I think 14 track days before I ever did my first race. And I did the whole novice, intermediate, advanced progression, took my racing school, got my race license, and then did my first event. And still, just like you were saying, I think I got lapped my first event. Now it was a wet race. It was a drying track. It was wet out there. So I was just trying to finish the race, and I didn't care where I finished. So it was different mentality then. But what do you think? How many track days do you think is reasonable before you go racing, if any?
I would say at minimum at least one is probably recommended. I know there's in CMRA there's some, which granted they're a bit younger. I know there's some kids who literally started on the racetrack. They had never ridden before, and they went right into taking their license school, and then did the junior motard class. But that's a little bit different. As far as your friend goes, I mean, it's very possible that he could jump right into it and be just fine. But I think at minimum you should at least do one track day just to get out there and really get a measure of your riding ability and what you're comfortable with, and then kind of go from there. And maybe after one, he can jump into taking his license course and then becoming a prov knob and working his way from there.
Yeah.
I know one of the first things that's kind of big, at least in my opinion, about racing is getting comfortable riding really close to someone. And you really have to trust your fellow riders that they know what they're doing, and That's the whole reason. I'm not sure your club organization if they do the same, but in CMRA as a Provnov, you have to wear a yellow shirt, kind of as an indicator, like, "Hey, I'm new, just so you know." Um, but that's one of the things that's uh, a little new and different that takes some getting used to is going into a corner and if you leave the door open and someone passes you right up the inside. I mean, I remember in one of my first races, I'm going through a corner and I missed the apex and I left the door open and a guy passed me on the inside and I'm hanging off the inside of his bike and I swear his exhaust went a foot from my head and it was like in slow motion for me as his bike comes by and I swear I could feel the heat from his exhaust and it was, I mean, I'm sure it was further apart than I really felt, but just getting used to that, getting used to other people on track and making sure that you can hold your line. You don't want to be erratic and do these big sweeping maneuvers, but you can go into a corner and hold a line and that kind of thing is really important because the guys behind you are trusting that you're going to hold your line and not do something erratic. And you've got to be able. It's got to be a two-way street. It's got to be some mutual trust there. So I don't know. I'll be curious to hear. You'll have to let me know how that goes for them. I would definitely recommend at least one track day. But a lot of guys come from motocross and flat track and riding in the dirt and really take to road racing. I mean, just look at the Hayden brothers. I mean, Nicky Hayden and his brothers were phenomenal in the dirt, and when they started road racing, they just took right to it like a duck to water. Um, so
Yeah, you can definitely progress pretty quick. But I think it'd be easier taking just do at least one track day weekend, maybe even a 3-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would be great because that allows you to maybe get the two different bumps to the next groups. I think as long as you're an advanced track day guy, you're pretty much ready to go racing. Like if you've done a couple advanced track days, that's pretty much you're good to go. If you can hold your line, if you're consistent, predictable, really doesn't matter how fast you are as long as you're consistent with it.
yeah, absolutely. I tell people that all the time. I've actually got to do a little bit of coaching myself, which, like you said, is a lot of fun, and it's really cool to meet people who are newer to the sport and really eager to learn, and being able to impart some of your knowledge to them and kind of help them learn from your experience. And I've learned a lot of things the hard way doing stupid stuff on the street and doing stupid stuff when I first started riding on a racetrack that I learned the hard way and ended up crashing. So to be able to share those lessons that I learned with a newer rider is really awesome. But I've had several riders ask me like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm ready to race. Like, I don't think I'm fast enough." And honestly, there's not a I wouldn't say there's like a specific lap time you need to be at to start racing. It more comes down to, can you hold a line? Are you consistent? You're not all over the place sweeping, erratic lines. Can you hold the same line around the track for more than one lap? And if you can do that, you're golden. And I encourage people to start racing because that's really what's going to drive you forward. And if you're wanting to go faster and safer, it's a good way to learn. I'm also a huge advocate of endurance racing. That was tremendously helpful to me. One, because like I said, you spend so much time on the bike that you get the repetition. And then also on the smaller bikes like the Ninja 400, it doesn't have the power as my 660, so it's really important to carry the corner speed and get a good drive out of the corners. And so you learn to carry corner speed, and you learn to carry higher entry speed and really get on the throttle harder. So all of that translates perfectly onto the bigger bikes. and it's extremely helpful. So I'm a huge advocate of endurance racing. That's something that's been extremely helpful to me, and anyone looking to get into racing, that's a great way to get into it, because you're going to have a team. You're splitting the price either 3 or 4 ways, and being a team sport, it's a lot of fun. You get to hang out with your buddies, and it's a really good time, and you're going to get a ton of laps, you get a ton of repetition, and there's no what's the word, uh I don't know, I can't think of the word. Seat time is everything, is what I'm trying to get at. Like,
Yeah.
there's no replacement. There's no replacement for seat time. At the end of the day, the more you do it, the more you're on track, the more laps you do. That's what's gonna build your confidence, your skill. Um, that's all it comes down to, is seat time, and good seat time. And
Yeah, and I was actually considering getting into endurance racing. I've never done an endurance race myself. I was a crew for an endurance team one time at Road Atlanta, and I was just doing the pit board, but not on the bike. So it would be really cool to do a 4 hour at Road Atlanta. There's one coming up in September, not too long from now, for N2 Wera, and same series that just went to Pittsburgh. And I'm like, man, that would be really cool to do. Now it looked like the Friday practice is already full, but I mean, do you really need a Friday practice if you have 4 hour race?
yeah. What track is that at?
That's at Road Atlanta in Georgia coming up. I think it's like a couple of weeks from now, like maybe 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I don't have a team in place, but I just got a motorcycle, so I'm like, man, that'd be really cool to do that.
Yeah, man, I wish I had more money. Said every racer ever.
So that's kind of why I'm doing this, trying to get more eyeballs. If I have 1 million followers, I could maybe get Anheuser-Busch or Coca-Cola on board. That's the idea anyway.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about some of your supporters. You got some sponsors in your corner?
Yeah, so I've got a few sponsors. I've got Unit F14. They are a powder coating company here in Dallas. They're actually in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, and that's a group of friends of mine. They actually started in their home garage, and then kind of expanded and got a storage unit, and it was Unit F14, which is where the name comes from. And they've since really blown up, and they've got a full-on shop now, and they do a lot of really um, cool work, powder coating, and not just automotive. I mean, they do a lot of wheels, and car wheels, car calipers, motorcycle wheels, frames. They do all sorts of stuff, and not just motorsports. I mean, they do cups and anything metal that you want to powder coat. They do it, and so they support me. Then Bison.
Oh yeah,
With
Bison Leathers, Bison Track.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob and Tasha are two really good friends of mine, and I actually have one of the original Bison suits.
Oh nice.
It's hanging up in my shop now. It was recently retired. That thing went through 7 crashes and only had like a small, like nickel sized hole in the back. But 7 crashes, one at over 100 miles an hour, and 0 injuries.
That's great.
So that thing's awesome. And then Galfer, they've been a tremendous help over the years, with brake pads, rotors, brake lines, that kind of thing. I've been wearing Shoei helmets for 10 years now. So actually, the entire time I've been riding a motorcycle, I've worn Shoei helmets, and let's see what else. Hot bodies, have, I don't even know how many sets of body work from them, anywhere from my SV, the Ninja 400. I think they recently released a set for the Aprilia, and cycle gear. Um, I think that's pretty much all the main ones. Which of course they're mostly giving discounts, which helps a lot. But again, it's really hard these days to get actual monetary sponsorship, just because um, our economy is kind of not doing the best, and there's a lot of businesses just trying to keep the lights on. So I've been working hard at it the past couple of years, and it's just really hard to get money together to go racing. And as you know very well, it's extremely expensive sport. I mean, between gas money to get all the way across the country to just get to the race, tires, and um, at like a Moto America event, you need at least 3 sets of tires.
Yeah.
The bigger teams there have a set of tires for every session.
So how many sets of tires do you think you go through in a typical race season?
In a season? Oh wow. I mean, so like at Moto America, I typically run at least 3 sets of tires if it's a single race weekend, and if it's a double race weekend, I would say at least 4. Ideally, you'd want to have like 5. Um, and then at the club level, I'm running at least 1 set on the 400, and then probably 2 fronts and 3 rears on the Aprilia. So that's what 3.5 sets, maybe 4. And then a typical club season's 10 rounds. So that's 40 sets of tires. And then, um, so far I've really only been able to do like 1, maybe 2 pro rounds a year. So, man, you're looking at like 45 sets of tires, and
That's a lot of rubber.
that's not including if you do a track day or training days in between. And unfortunately for me, so actually I climb cell phone towers for a living, and we cover 7 different states, and I work 12 on and 2 off. So I'm gone most of the month. I work 12 days, and then I'm home for 1 or 2 days, and just enough time to do laundry and pay some bills and do some chores. And then I'm on the road for 12 days again, and then I have a race. And I work all the time just to be able to afford to race, that I don't really have the time off to go and train. And a lot of the Moto America guys, they're in between races, they're club racing, and if they're not club racing, they're doing a track day, and if they're not doing a track day, they're at a karting track on a Ovali.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing that, they're on their dirt bike, and if not, they're on a pit bike. I mean, it's
Moto everything.
yeah. And believe me, I would give anything to be able to do that, but it's stupid expensive. And
Well, it sounds like just keep doing what you're doing, and you might arrive there, might get there someday. That's what I'm trying to do, trying to build up this business, EricSwahnRacing.com, to help sell enough stuff that I can be at the racetrack every weekend and be competing and banging bars with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be more than happy to be a supporter, and I'll definitely be posting this up and spreading the word, because I want to see everyone make it. Not
Heck
just
yeah.
me. I want to see my friends, and people like you and Rob, and there's so many people like us that are just so passionate about the sport. And I mean, my life literally revolves around racing. It's what I'm passionate about. I mean, it's the reason I work the job that I do. I work so much to be able to afford this, and it's um, I'm all in.
Me too. I love to hear that. So where can people find you online?
So I mostly post on Instagram, which is C Slagle 545. And then I am about to be launching a YouTube channel.
Nice.
I've been for years and years now, always I've had all these ideas for, oh, that would make a cool video, or this would make a cool video, but I've um don't have any experience editing or anything like that. So I've always been like, well, I need to get some experience first. And I've decided, if I keep waiting until I have the experience, it's never going to happen. So I'm just diving in, jumping in with both feet, and I'm going to, learn to swim on the way. So I'm actually, while I've been stuck at home, with the thumb healing, I've been working on my first YouTube video, putting some content together, and I'll be launching that soon.
Nice. What program are you using for your editing?
I think it's Premiere. It's Adobe's, because I've been using Photoshop for a few years. And then so I just got their video editing software, which I think is Premiere.
Nice.
And yeah, so that's pretty exciting. I believe the YouTube channel's Chandler Slagle 545.
I got you.
And that first video will be up here in hopefully a couple days. So that's
And if you get really good at that, that could be an editing job could be in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually I just started taking some classes, and kind of going back to school, working on some tech certifications with the goal of getting a job I can do remotely. Because I bought a school bus that I'm converting into a RV,
Nice.
which is yeah, that's a pretty exciting project. And the dream is to get a job I can do remotely anywhere with an internet connection, and then once I get the bus done, just hit the road racing and traveling across the country, different racetracks, and that way I can, drive half the day, stop at a truck stop, break out the laptop, and do some work, make a couple bucks, and then keep driving. So
Go track to track to track.
yeah, that's the dream. So
Very good. Well, that's about an hour 40 minutes already. I think we can probably wrap it up. So
yeah,
I'll get this posted in a couple weeks. I got a few of them before, but I'm happy to talk to you, and I'll see you at the racetrack real soon. I'm going to be at Pittsburgh coming up. I think I'm leaving tomorrow, actually. So leaving for Pittsburgh, I'm going to be a track marshal, so waving the flags at the side of the track for this Moto America Pittsburgh International Race Complex event coming up this weekend.
awesome, man. It was a pleasure talking to you. I can't even believe that was an hour and 40 minutes. It went by really quick. I can talk all day about anything two wheels. So well, have fun out there at Pittsburgh, and if you ever make it to Texas, hit me up. I know a lot of people out here that ride and race, and definitely love to show you around DCR sometime. So let me know if you ever make it down this way.
I will for sure. Thanks for talking, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. You have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.